What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode 2 of Quarantine with the Queens. And today, I could talk about a lot of things. And I could also talk about nothing. Or I could drink some Corona. And this Corona is made in Mexico. Who really knows? But anyways, so back to what I was saying. So a lot of stuff is going on, and let's just Google. But anyway, this is Quarantine with the Queens, so we'll talk about a couple of different things, but Corona's on everyone's mind, so I'm gonna maybe I'll talk about it, maybe I won't. But so let's talk about it. The current number of cases, and today is April, what is it? Today's April 14th, and currently there's 604,000 cases in the United States, and almost 2 million cases in the world, which if you really think about it, that's not that many people compared to like the whole world's population. And, by the way, I just want to make a disclaimer. I don't want to sound like someone who thinks they're an expert, but to the audience is listening, that I'm really not an expert in this. So take what I say for granted. Or with a grain of salt, as they say. So let's see. We have 16,000 new cases today, which is quite a bit lower than before. So that's kind of all I want to talk about with the coronavirus. Like, that's maybe all I'm gonna put in these videos, like a very short numbers update, and really not get into any of the details because that can be boring. So anyway, there's 600,000 cases, 2 million worldwide, out of 8 or 12 or 15, however many billion people, probably closer to 8 billion people in the world. And so really a very small amount percentage-wise of people have it. So, but will it stay or will it go? Nobody knows. Here's what I think. If you want to hear my opinion about the subject, is that because we don't have a vaccine, and this is me pretending to sound like an expert, but I'm really not. So let me just calculate the data and see what I think. So what I think is going to happen with this coronavirus deal, hold on a second. Okay. Where were we? So what I think is going to happen with this coronavirus situation is it's going to last for a while. I don't know if because it's not super deadly to a lot of people, I don't know if it'll really stop the world. Everything will go to a stop. I know we have stay-at-home orders and things of that nature. I know in some areas it's really bad, but on the plus side, the only thing that can happen is it will continue to spread. But if enough people get it and recover, then eventually it will run out of people to infect, and it'll die out. But that's probably not the best scenario because that might bring up the death toll substantially, but who knows. Anyways, so here's kind of my routine during this whole thing. I wake up, I drink coffee, I think about the current situation we're in and kind of reflect and think, wow, this is crazy. And we may not ever experience something like that or like this again. So, that's kind of what this Quarantine with the Queens is a little bit about, is just documenting, vlogging, interview style type deal to say what's, to just record the present for one day when it becomes the distant past. So, as you might start to wonder, Casey, what is this video about? And, I'm wondering the same thing, to be honest with you. Because I didn't really have a game plan for how or what I wanted this video to talk about, but okay, so if you haven't already seen the show, shout out to Carol Baskin. And yes, for the record, I do think she killed her husband. Anyways, it's a great show, Tiger King. I think everyone should watch it while we're all quarantining. It's has the most interesting and unique individual, Joe Exotic, that I've ever seen. And it's very catchy. I really wish that Trump would pardon him. I don't know if that's ever going to actually be on the table or not, but it would be very cool to see him out of jail, because he'd be really pissed. And the videos he made before talking about doing XYZ to Carol Baskin, you can only wonder and wonder what kind of videos would come out next if he got out of jail. But I think if I remember right, the video said he's serving like a 20-year sentence, something like that. And I don't know, the media can spin things off, a lot of different directions, make things look a certain way or make you see a certain perspective. And this movie or series, docu-series, had a little bit of that. But I think it definitely looks like he was set up, in my opinion, by Jeff Lowe and definitely Carol Baskin. And whoever that one guy was that was Jeff Lowe's friend, worker who only worked for Jeff Lowe. I always blank when I get up to the microphone or start recording. Like, what was I going to say? I had this all, highly thought out, elegant thing that I was going to talk about, and I don't even know. I don't even remember. So, there's that. You know what? I think what people should do. Oh, I know what I was going to talk about. This stimulus money. Now, as we all know, this stimulus money is coming into our bank accounts. And so let's say, for instance, you're married and you have 2 kids. They are going to pay you $1,200 for you and your spouse, and $500 per kid. So that's $3,400 for your average family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids. So what's interesting about that, I think, is that at least in my life, my short-lived life, I've never seen something like this, which is interesting, but it's very crazy to say the least. I remember when I was in school, we'd learn about certain things, like whether it was the whole Spanish flu that supposedly originated in Kansas, or somewhere, maybe Spain, Spanish, Kansas, who knows? But you can tell I don't know what I'm talking about. Who knows? So, but I remember in class thinking like man, we'd learn something about history and say, man, and there might be some black and white picture that you really can't see what's going on. It just looks really old, and then the text had to be long because they had to explain it. But you always thought like, oh man, this is crazy what happened. Whether it was like Hitler and all those bad things associated with him, and the plagues that we learned about in history and all that stuff. What's interesting about this time is like this is maybe the craziest thing that ever happened. Maybe not, but maybe it's the craziest thing that's happened during everyone who's alive right now's lives. But what's more important is you have to question like how history class and school will be taught in like the distant future, like 100 years from now, because we won't just have a black and white picture or even a colored picture. We'll have quality, in a lot of cases 4K, and here soon it'll be commonly used 8K video of these crazy events happening. So I don't think it'll be forgotten about as much. Aside from the fact that it could be exaggerated with how much fake news that's out there and or just heightened news that's twisted and spun certain ways to get you to think the world's ending. I can assure you it's not, because you know what? Let's say that the whole world, 8 billion. I really wish I knew the world population. 9 billion. I'm going to say it's probably 7. I think I remember it's like 7. Let's just say it's 7. Let's say all 7 or 8, 9 billion people got the coronavirus, and let's say it killed like 100 million people. And that would be like a crazy number. But let's exaggerate it. And I know it wouldn't take this many, but let's say it was a lot higher than that. Well, you'd still have like 98% or 99% of your population left, even if everyone got infected and lived. And so, for people who think the world's ending because of this, I can assure you it's not. And for people who think that I really know what I'm talking about, I can assure you I don't. The only thing that I really care about is drinking Corona and trying to have a good time during this whole quarantine. And that's why you're watching Quarantine with the Queens. Because maybe you have nothing better to do with yourself. Maybe you watched The Tiger King. Maybe you've stalked Carol Baskin yourself. And maybe you're in jail with Joe Exotic. Who knows where you're at. But yeah, I want to provide some content for people at home to watch and maybe some inspiration. Maybe not. Who knows? Man, I thought, after watching The Tiger King, it made me think a couple of things. A, it made me think, wow, there's a lot of people out there that have these crazy animals like tigers and whatnot that I've never seen or heard of owning. And 2, I found out that Oklahoma, where the zoo is at, is still legal to own tigers. And I'm sure there's some type of like paperwork or registration so the state knows you own them, just like any other type of deal like that. But still, any old Joe, it sounds like, could own a liger in his backyard as long as he had the proper equipment. And there's no real regulation, so who's to say, in Oklahoma at least, who's to say that, John John Doe or whatever has the right equipment or not. So we don't, who knows? This might have spawned a lot more people having it. And I found it really interesting that there are more animals in what they call captivity than anywhere else in the world, or the wild, so to speak. And that could look like a bad thing, or it could be that if it wasn't for the people owning tigers, there might be less tigers in the world. Because the ones that are in the wild are obviously endangered, and a lot of the species extinct. So they did something wrong on their own. At least people who are keeping them alive and healthier than ever. So, but two, the other thing is that Oklahoma is really close to Wichita, and this zoo is only, I think, 3 hours and some change away from here. So after seeing the Tiger King, it really made me want to go and check out this zoo just to kind of, soak it all in, all the craziness that happened in there. It reminded me, the character of Joe Exotic reminded me of an old friend. With just the style and personality of him. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. What else? I keep feeling like I have more to talk about, and maybe I do, maybe I don't. What else is happening? I remember when, and this is April 14th, so it's obviously been a few months, but I remember right after Christmas, like right after my Christmas break from work, I went back to work, and I remember reading the news, hearing about this suspicious pneumonia-like disease or illness infecting patients in hospitals in Wuhan, China, and it raised some red flags. I was like, oh, maybe this is like exaggerated, like, oh, here comes another Ebola or H1N1, which, as far as I don't know, are pretty real and dangerous diseases. But anyways, it I kept seeing little news clippings here and there on Google News saying like this many cases, that many cases. And then before it got crazy in the States, Trump made his first actual announcement about it, assuring that we had no cases, had no intention of getting cases, and that that we are in really good shape because we have no cases, and that everyone does a tremendous job, and including himself, and that other countries around China might see cases, but we do such a tremendous job in America that we would never get to that level. And right then and there, I decided, you know what? Just on the possibility that he's 100% wrong, which now it turns out he was substantially off about what he was saying, but which doesn't really matter. But anyways, and I'm probably murdering this whole story. So, anyways, on the chance that I was wrong, I said to myself, you know what? I could stock up on supplies, and I didn't even think about toilet paper, but I went to Sam's. So I thought to myself, and I said to myself, on the chance that I can be wrong, if I go out now, and this was way before everyone else started getting a bunch of supplies, and I think we might have been low on toilet paper. There was no thing in the news or any, no social media craze about toilet paper yet, but I just happened to throw in a Sam's roll of toilet paper, so we were good. But anyway, long story short is that since the cases did grow and I did need that food, it was kind of a good way to think about situations. Sometimes it's better to err on the side of caution than to hope for good without having any action or preparedness behind it. So that's all I want to say.